Welcome everybody. I'm Michael Naylor, and I'm the director of the Maine Enneagram Center for Transformation and Change. And today I have the opportunity to interview Art Wimberly from Alabama, who is a beloved Type 7. And great to have you here today, Art. And uh, just wondered if you might share a little bit about how you learned about the Enneagram, what that was like for you, and then how it's been of use to you in your life and how you've applied it.
Yeah, sure. It's good to be with you, Michael.
Yeah, you too.
Um, I first encountered the term Enneagram in a book. I was on a silent retreat and I wasn't supposed to be reading anything, and I made it 3 or 4 days and somehow found myself in a little church library, and somehow found myself looking at the books. And I stumbled across a book by Father Richard Rohr that wasn't directly about the Enneagram at all. It was one of his older books called From Wild Man to Wise Man. And I was pretty wild and thought I'd be better if I was wise. So I had heard of Rohr and read about him years before in some other uh, areas. And so this intrigued me that here was one of his books. And so I grabbed it and read it. And in it, he refers to the Enneagram and the system. And
Hmm.
kind of like a good seven a low functioning seven, I immediately thought I understood the whole thing and looked at it, and grasped the system and at a head level and thought that was
Mhm.
all there was to it. But that was the introduction, and it was fortuitous. And it took a couple of more years after that before it circled back, and maybe the student was ready, so the teacher reappeared or whatever. And so then I understood that no, this is deeper than a just a mental map, and there's a lot of work to be done. So I began to immerse myself into it at that point, reading everything I could read, getting my hands on everything I could get my hands on, studying under folks. Um, Pretty quickly saw, yes, type 7, certainly felt at home, made the most sense. I've never typed as anything else except once I typed as a type 5, which makes a lot of sense when you began looking at things like integration and soul child and that type. Makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's the only time it didn't come back on a test as a 7. But the 7 fit completely in so many different ways, and I was at home with it. And probably, unlike sometimes, it was a little easier kind of to accept it with that energy. So, um, a little magical thinking there too. But so then there was kind of a quest at that point to connect to others that I felt were ahead of me and then build a community somehow. And so I took some trainings from a couple of, and then actually in Michael, I think it was 2017
Hmm.
or 18 that you and I first met
Yeah,
in person, because you came to Alabama
yeah,
and you did a couple of different workshops a couple of years in a row, I think,
yeah.
and attended those. That got me deeper into it, more thinking. You did one on the Enneagram and the instincts,
Yep,
and one on the inner critic.
yep.
And the instincts was kind of lit me alive a little. I already, because I immediately, while you were talking, uh, saw the connection between that and the fourth and fifth step of 12 steps. So I'm grateful to be in long-term recovery.
Yeah.
Love the 12-step process. It probably saved my life. And then also then began to build, a little bit more healthier emotional life as well. But I saw immediately the connection between those instincts that were being described in the Enneagram wisdom, and immediately said, well, I already know these. They're in the fourth step.
Yeah.
The famous 12 and 12 essay on the fourth step
Yeah. Yeah.
begins,
Yeah.
creation gave humanity three instincts. So once I start seeing things like that, the neurons really start firing. And my tendency is to be able to think things that are seemingly disconnected and then start
Yeah.
putting them together and synthesizing them. And so that became a big deal for
Mm.
my own recovery, but also for people I was sponsoring.
Mm.
And I became kind of a very eclectic kind of a blend of a sponsor, coach, lay counselor. I've got my 10,000 hours in, but no degrees, no certificates or stuff. And so the Enneagram then became the synergy with 12 step work or any other template really, just made both of them more powerful.
Yeah.
And it began explaining in some minute detail for myself why I kept getting caught, even though I wasn't going back to using, or I was probably what they would call back in the old days a co-addict with sexual addiction.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, over the years, I think it would be easier for me to see now that the substance abuse really wasn't the addiction.
Mm.
When I took care of the behavioral addiction with the sexual addiction, the substance abuse no longer was really a problem. So I probably wasn't a classic addict in the alcohol marijuana sense that I was abusing,
Yeah.
but the addiction ran deeper in terms of the process or behavioral addiction of sexuality.
Yeah.
So once I gained sobriety in that 22 years ago, the other thing took care of itself.
Oh, awesome.
And then later the Enneagram comes along and begins deepening my recovery,
Mm-hmm.
giving more words and more nuance to character defects and inner critic and and emotional sobriety and inner sobriety. And then you know I'd always been a helper anyway in terms of being in that 12 step world, and so it just moved right into the way I began to sponsor people or counsel people. And because I'm kind of like one of those people that I'm in all three categories. I'm a recovering person, but have also had really difficult experiences with loved ones with addiction. So I'm in that category as well. I need help, right? I'm a concerned significant other, as they say, and then, but I'm also a helper. So for me, the Enneagram is all across all three identities for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll say a little bit about, if you would, um, the particular traits or, behavior patterns that are ascribed to the seven that you identify with. Like, what, how would we know you're a seven?
Yeah. Probably the last 5 minutes of storytelling would be part of it. So, uh,
I was gonna
you
say, yeah.
well, I tell people all the time. We used to have a T-shirt in recovery circles we were in, and it said, "Warning: I've got character defects, and I'm not afraid to use them." And then we would cross out the use and put lose right next to it, and everybody loved that shirt. Well, as a recovering seven or what, I feel like should have a shirt that says, "Warning: I'm a sexual social seven with a repressed self-preservation instinct. You might not want to ask me an open question." So because it just turns into stories, and
Yeah,
so that's
yeah,
part of it. I would say the thing that coincided with the discoveries in the inventory and 12 step work that match up real well. One of them is the kind of unconscious insistence that nobody impede my freedom,
yeah,
not tie
yeah,
me down,
yeah,
not
yeah,
make me stay when I don't want to stay or
yeah,
go through pain or conflict or whatever. That
yeah,
showed up in early in the inventories, uh, probably mostly through the anger, fear inventory, or the resentment inventory about what makes you angry. And
hmm
almost every answer I had was like somebody said, no, no, you can't do that way, not now, maybe not ever, or stay here or whatever. So I would say that is kind of a common thing I find with most sevens, this idealized freedom. the magical thinking the world, that I don't have to obey some of the rules of the world,
Hmm.
and I can get away with it somehow. Um, I'd say probably the other thing is this one was really subtle, was the unconscious search for a certainty in life through the head.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't ascribe that one particularly to sevens, maybe more six-ish. But the more I look back, the more I see all of this reading, all of this talking, all of this acting, all of the interactions, all of it was an unconscious way to try to find some sense of certainty
Yeah.
about the future.
Yeah.
And so that I would say, and then the other one, of course, is just simply, yeah, most of what I was doing was to get into the future without knowing it, because, well, guess what? Nobody can impinge on my freedom in the future, and I
Hmm.
don't have to slow down long enough to sit in things that are scary or fearful or deeply painful. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, it does seem to be. Thank you for that too. An interesting trait of the seven is they can hop out of the frying pan quicker than most,
yeah,
and they tend to be fast at whatever they do, whether it's understanding something or healing or um, so. I I know for myself, I have a, a really wonderful friend who's a seven, who's I would call him a hummingbird. He's like a hummingbird. He goes here and there and there and there, and he might. So if if I'm at an AA meeting and he comes into the meeting, he can have four conversations going on at once
yeah,
and keep integrity between them. And I'm sitting
yeah,
there going, "Oh my God, how does he
yeah,
do this?"
yeah,
Uh, and he also has that great love of conversation and sharing his story
yeah,
that his part of his inner work is to, well, he said, what do you think I ought to do with my communication? I said, well, it might be an idea to try to just share 50% of the time
yeah,
when you're, and he said, well, I've been working on that and I can now share almost 10% of the time with it. I speak 90%, they speak 10, but that's a vast improvement and I'm working on it. I said, well, this is a slow moving boat.
yeah.
How is that? Do you notice that there can be easy access to stories and sort of dominating the airwave when you get excited? And because, sevens usually get really excited about their
Yep,
ideas and they're
yep.
coming through and it's a fast moving mind. And
Mhm.
yeah, what's that experience been like for you?
Yeah, that I mean, that was me. And so in recovery, part of that got, I would say, softened a little bit because I had to learn how to share in the groups
Mhm.
appropriately. I was fortunate in the rooms I was in. We had facilitators that were really good about saying, "Hey, 3 to 5 minutes," and they enforced it pretty well, gracefully, but they enforced it. Now
Yeah.
they knew enough to let somebody go a little longer if it really needed to be, especially a newcomer. But I was fortunate that I was kind of made to behave. I mean, I used to say, I mean, it's like 1 hour a week. You can do it 1 hour a week. You just cut down on your talking. So that helped a lot.
Mm.
And then learning to sponsor people helped a lot because I knew I needed to balance what I was saying with more listening. And
Yeah.
that began to help a lot. Then I began to be trained as a lay counselor. That began to help a lot.
Mm.
But it's still right there, as you can see. I'm ready.
Mhm.
And but it's much better. I catch it quicker. Uh, I'm more conscious going into situations,
Mm.
especially if I feel the energy up. If it's getting
Yeah.
up here,
Is that where you usually feel it? Is
yeah, it'll start rising through from the gut up
uh-huh.
into the sternum up to here. And so if I'm doing any type of, kind of present work or breathing or, okay, there it is, right? Okay. Well, in some circumstances, I need it because I'm fixing to do something I need to do with the talking.
Hmm.
But in a lot of circumstances, I need to let it settle back
Mm.
and then see what happens in the room. It's not as if there's not going to be opportunities and there might be good timing for it. But of course, when you're unconscious as a seven, you never think there's going to be enough opportunities. For, I tell people in recovery, sometimes we'll talk about the idea of, well, one's too many and 100's not enough. I'm like, great. All right, let's find out within your particular personality what that looks like. What's the one thing that's never enough, that's too much for, but 100 of them is not enough either.
Yeah,
And it's usually something linked into the Enneagram personality type, or as you would call it, the internal playing field.
yeah,
It's in there. Yeah.
yeah. Well, so I just wanted to mention that one word that comes up as the passion for the seven, which is gluttony, and it sort of goes along that principle of well, you can never get enough of what you don't need.
Exactly. More
And,
more is always better. It must be, right? I know it didn't work the last time, the first 99 times, but I'll try it again, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And so I'm still prone to that.
yeah,
In any given moment it's there, but I've learned to recognize it quicker, do a much better kind of a pre-10th step, and do the inventory and then check it, but I don't have to apologize as much.
yeah.
Uh, but I'm still considered an over communicator by many people that are around me. So
Well, when you think about this ability to notice when the energy is rising, uh, and I always see it in my seven friends, there's an excitability. It's like, ooh, this feels good. And then I find, and then out it comes, and often they're delightful storytellers. But what is your relationship with meditation and sitting meditation? How have you worked
oh,
with that?
it's been the toughest thing ever. I mean, I struggle with it in step work from the beginning, step 11. I still struggle. You and I talked about it. You did your best to try to help me. Uh, I'm better. I've stopped beating myself up because I'm not particularly good at it or prone to it or a
Mhm.
discipline in it, but I'm better. Slowly finding more time to surrender to, it's okay. I'm not going to die if I'm not taking new information in,
Yeah,
or moving
yeah,
or talking,
yeah.
or learning or teaching, and so I'm I'm slowly getting a little better at
Well,
that, and I'm having to find non-traditional ways to do that because
mhm.
it's just harder for me to decide I'm going to commit to sitting and doing this. So I've had to find some non-traditional ways. Yeah.
And could you mind talking about what's helped you?
Yeah, no, no. For me, it seems that it's a little bit easier if I walk in nature,
Great.
but no earphones. No,
No
and,
books, no audiobooks.
right, and so if I can still have a little bit of movement with it, it seems to give me just enough freedom to then let the mind quiet down.
Oh, good.
But it still takes a little longer
Hmm.
to get there.
Yeah.
Um, so because I've come to this so late in life, really,
Hmm.
uh, went into 12-step work at 49, 22 years sober, but really the pushback against really any type of meditation practice in step 11 has always been there. And then
Yeah,
it just carried over to the Enneagram work.
sure.
So it's been a slow build for me.
Well, it seems uh, uh, really normal to me that everyone I know that has attempted to learn to sit still and follow their breath and be present and not come out of their skin, that uh, I'll bet you 95% of people struggle with that. So, and I think seven's just a little bit more because they've got more of that adrenalized
I
thinking
think so.
energy that they get, they have excitable thoughts and ideas and breakthroughs and visions. So, so it takes time. And it sounds like when you're out walking that something starts to slow down in terms of your head center a bit.
I think so. I think if I can, if it's not a hurried walk, and if it's
Hmm.
somewhere, maybe somewhere a little bit more in nature
Yeah,
where there's a little less distraction,
yeah,
and I'm willing to do it long enough, there usually comes a place there where things just tend to kind of tend to settle down a little, and just a little bit more integration. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the other thing we often talk about is just this idea for the type 7 that learning to slow themselves down long enough to be able to feel their emotions. Uh, sevens I've worked with would say I can't stay there very long, or if I do, I can just touch my heart for a moment because it feels like if there's pain there, that there's certain death around the corner too. So I'm not going to hang in there too long, but it's like the habit of the 7, the mechanical habit is to go up into the head and to think and go to the next positive thing, right?
Mm.
Okay, I'm feeling a little bit of suffering. Well, there's at least 9 things I could do that would cheer me up. So why wouldn't I go do those?
Right.
So I wonder, how have you worked with developing a relationship with your heart?
Yeah, that's a great one, because that's still a big work in process. Because I could fool myself and even fool people, because I could talk so well about the emotions but not feel them.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that fools a lot of people.
Hmm. Hmm.
So a big part for me is just being intentional, or having somebody help me intentionally through, whether it's music, or maybe even my dog, uh, something that will connect me to an emotion, that the connection will then make me more willing to stay with it.
Hmm.
Because for me, the hardest part has always been thinking that the intellectualizing of them actually connected me to it.
Yes.
And so bypassing that and getting there just
Yeah.
takes a while. Um, I don't know if you ever knew Don Carroll. Do you know
Yeah.
Don at
Yeah. I
all?
know,
Don,
Don.
yeah. Well, so Don was one of those folks in that, when I started looking around and grabbing everybody I could,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, I talked to Don for a season about some of this, and he helped me by just saying this one simple thing. He said, Art, sevens have huge hearts. They just can't feel them. And you might think that would be discouraging, but it was actually encouraging to me,
Yeah.
because somebody said, no, no, it's there.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
Your work is to feel it.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
great observation.
Because one of the things that has hounded me, and this is interesting, Michael. You've probably heard this before, but this never bothered me until after sobriety, and that is this: I started having a message, an inner critic message, that would come
Hmm.
and would say, in a moment's notice, you don't know how to love anybody. I could have just done a sacrificial, loving thing with no string attached, and before my foot hit the stair step to leave, it was right there. You don't even know what, you don't know how to love anybody,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that message had never come upon me before sobriety.
Hmm.
So I really got pissed off in the 12 step meeting, because it told me I wasn't going to struggle with that anymore. Fear of economic insecurity, and shame. And I'm like, no, why now? Why now? But of course, you kind of know, right? It uncovered this uh, domain of the 7,
Yeah.
in which we really, even though we might seem like heart people just on the outside to people,
Hmm.
the disconnection from it just gave
Yeah.
that fuel for that critic to say, see,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
love anybody. You
Yeah.
just did that. Yeah, but you don't love anybody.
Yeah. So it could create self-doubt around that because you
Oh,
couldn't sense it.
terrible,
Yeah.
terrible, terrible.
Well, is there anything that helps you sort of touch that? Because, you point to something that I've noticed in sevens is that they're very generous and loving. And, if they're joyful, they want to share their joy. And that's an action of loving kindness right there.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of like it's almost like having a radiant sun in the middle of your chest that you can't see because you got thick sunglasses on, but everybody else can see it. So
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way, anything you've done that's helped you to start to feel that, feel the connection between what's really there and your own felt experience. And is there a practice or anything you do, hanging out with your dogs? What touches your heart?
Yeah. Yeah. Part of the dog, actually, if he was here, you could see he's got a white spot on a black body right where his heart is. So
Oh,
sometimes I'll just put my hand there and rub and do mine to try to stay and sit still with that
yeah.
and connect. Yeah, something like that. I have found people telling me that I'm loving doesn't register.
Yeah, just goes on over.
Just
Yeah,
right out. Yeah. Doesn't
yeah,
matter how many, doesn't matter who says it, when they said it, it just goes right, bypasses everything.
yeah.
So part of the journey for me late in life has been exactly what you're talking about.
Mm,
How do I touch? Sometimes it is just sitting there and putting my hand there and then
mm,
trying to breathe and just wait and
mhm.
see and understand. Some of it is get up every day and it starts over again and
Yeah.
there's that same attack and I'm like, oh, and you used to teach me, right? There's that inner critic again. I know what you're up to, right? And I'm like, okay, okay, yeah, that's not me. That's not me. And I'm still a work in progress on that one. I'm a for somebody that God gave me a pretty decent quick brain. I'm a slow learner, and it just this is one that's late in life is starting to actually take hold a little better, and most of it really is stopping and not trying to intellectualize it, but just feel it.
Yeah.
Let it have. I've It's funny, the first year, the first 6 months to 9 months of my recovery was so joyful, so alive, so sharing the good news of whatever, going to do this, do that, sponsoring, starting, whatever. In the second year is when the tears came
Mm,
and they wouldn't stop. And I realized then, took a while, but I do think that was part of the process of actually trying to feel those, and we might talk about or any 12-step program, go back and actually feel some of those feelings, right? How do we
yeah.
prime those and do it in a safe way? I think a lot of that was going on. My wife actually recognized it before I did. And she realized after a while when she would encounter me sobbing, there was not a particular current circumstantial thing. And she was smart enough and kind enough to come alongside because my addiction had hurt her quite badly.
Yeah.
But she had done her own work. She was doing her own work.
Mm,
And she was able to come alongside and put her arm around me and just say, you know what? I think your higher power is just tenderizing you right
that's
now.
great.
And
Beautiful.
so, and I think I'm seeing that more. I've probably seen that more in the last year, almost going back to that second year of recovery.
Hmm.
I've seen it more in the last year or two as I've intentionally put myself in situations, whether it's with a therapist,
Yes.
a sponsor, or in a lumen or
Yeah.
whatever, where, okay, this is a place you can touch them and stay there for a little while.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sadness, and I don't even know.
Yeah. I hear you. I have, it seems like there's a bottomless pit when it comes to the sadness,
Yeah,
and always another layer to scrape off. And yeah, but I was just thinking, one of the things I appreciate about Richard Rohr is his honoring of the importance of going, down into the depths of your suffering and healing it so that you're not transmitting
right.
your pain. And I think he's captured that so well in his trainings. And I know when I was early in recovery, I know, like yourself, I've been around a while, and yeah, there was for a period of time, and this was 40 some years ago, that almost like an anti-feeling code. Like you're not supposed to think about the past or feel the past. Never
Yeah,
mind that there was just lack of an understanding. It was all meant for good, but it
yeah,
seems like
yeah,
that has changed a lot in
yeah.
recovery circles. And
As a matter of fact, we brought up Father Rohr again. I'm facilitating a small group, and we're going through the newest book, The Tears of Faith. that he
Oh,
wrote, the tiers of things. Yeah.
yes,
And all of a
yes,
sudden, it's like somebody gave me permission to cry again
yes, good.
because I'm supposed to be helping people facilitate this
Yeah.
book, right?
Wow,
And all of
wow.
a sudden, I'm crying all the time. So,
Wow,
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So
Awesome.
the tiers of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, so um what else? I think I would love to, we've been talking about recovery in the Enneagram, and this is when I do my advertisement for my book, which is
Yeah.
The Alchemy of,
Well,
yeah.
I was actually going to hold that up. I've got one just like that spiral bound
Oh yeah, you
of
put the
yours.
spiral, yeah,
Oh yeah. Whenever I find something that works, I go to Kinko's, take
yep,
it apart, put the spiral binding because I'm going to be flipping these pages and I want to.
yeah,
And
me
I
too.
just used your book this morning. I
No.
hope this will help lead into what you're talking about, just by coincidence.
Oh.
In the office this morning, I was working with a person in recovery, this maybe 30 days sober, but type two.
Mm,
And so I had been doing some work with him for the last few weeks.
mm,
Um, and this morning I thought, I'm gonna make sure I've got your book with me because there's something in there I want him to read.
mm.
Because usually what I'll do is hand it to him and say, "Would you read that?" And I want to let them read it
Yeah,
and then let them experience it and
yeah,
just say, "Hey, you've got permission to stop on any word or phrase you want to, and if you want to tell me what you're feeling or hearing
yeah,
or thinking, let's talk." It is
yeah.
amazing they can't get through the first paragraph,
Huh, that's
right?
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I love the way you start with, and I know you didn't want this to be a commercial for the book, but
It's a,
I love the way you start with even the name is pulling from the essence of a type
yeah,
with a description, of how they were created, right?
yeah,
And so it starts them back in a place that's no, you can trust this behavior you've been doing is the ego's been trying to replicate something that you were created to do in a different way, so you can
yeah,
trust it,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a so I noticed one of the reasons I wrote the book was because I noticed so many people in long-term sobriety hitting some kind of stuck point and not understanding they needed something other than doing the 12 steps, that they needed some other kind
Yeah.
of healing modality, that if they knew, plus also just the idea that as you do the 12 steps, you're actually preparing yourself to deal with more shadow material.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's inevitable, right? If you're
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're probably gonna go through times when you take another deep dive into shadow material and work on it and then feel better and then think, as I would always think, oh, good, I'm
Yeah.
done.
I'm done. Yeah. No.
And
Yeah.
then 2 years later, whoop, there's
Yeah.
another layer of it.
Yeah. I mean, some of the phrasing you would hear in 12-step work usually is the character defects. Well, that we're going to deal with this one because it's causing the most pain or fear or whatever. Yeah, we're doing, and then we're doing, and then over time the other ones will rise up, and that's true.
Yeah,
And the same thing, but with Enneagram, it's like, well, yes, but you're going to understand it at a deeper level quicker
yeah,
and understand some of the nuance behind it,
yeah,
and exactly because of your type exactly where that wound is or where that heartache is or whatever in a much quick. I mean, again, there's still work to do. It's not you could say it's a shortcut and it is in a way, but it's still hard work, right?
yeah, it's ongoing work. That's my experience. I don't feel anywhere
Well,
near, I'm not a
again,
finished project.
yeah, and again, we could go on about Roar, but even him drawing attention to the concept of order and then disorder and
Yeah,
then reorder, or life, death, and resurrection
yeah,
is built in. And you kid myself about it, like I got ambushed about, I don't know, 8 or 9, 10 years in recovery. Just, I mean, just the worst anxiety and depression I've never was anxious on the surface. I wasn't anxious or
yeah.
depressed. I might have been a carrier and gave it to everybody else, but it wasn't me, right? And then I got crippled by it. Well, part of it was, of all people, I should have known that order, disorder, reorder was the way the universe works. and be prepared. And I wasn't.
Yeah.
Like you said, seven sometimes heals so fast and so quick, and they forget there's probably more layers to go.
Yeah, and I think that's if more people in recovery realize that, they won't be as discouraged when they hit one of those layers. Because
Right.
I've seen people hit that depressed state, and I've gone through 3 or 4 times over the years where I'm just hit this dark place, and I've got to do some new inner work and get some new help, and along with the foundation of the 12 steps. But yeah, and it's I think I notice whenever I've hit one of those shadow points, Richard Rohr calls that a time when you're in liminal space,
Right.
and where you're just in waiting, and you're between, you don't know what's next, and what's been there before isn't working, and so there you are. He said it's kind of like being crucified on Friday, and Saturday you're in the tomb. We
Yeah.
just don't know how long the tomb experience will be.
Right. Right.
And that's an important concept, I think, for people in recovery.
Absolutely. And I do believe that while it's not an absolute necessity for everybody in recovery to do Enneagram work, I think it just synergizes it so well,
Yeah,
not only in the sense of keeping you alert to the pattern of order, disorder, reorder, or however you want to call it, or that the character defects that are closest to the bone are going to kind of rise up later,
yeah,
but
yeah.
also the immense wisdom
Mm,
around spotting pattern quicker
yeah,
and spotting individual wounding
yeah.
quicker and individual mental states
Mm,
quicker and emotional states. And I don't know. There's just something about putting them together that can really lead to a much richer life as
yeah.
well as a much more fuller recovery. Yeah.
Well, they seem like a perfect blend to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a really nice synergy, uh, and like the 12 steps, there's no adherence to one particular idea of a higher power or spirit, or
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah. Plus to me, the other thing I think that makes it powerful together is the step work, I believe, ties the Enneagram back to the ground better because it's easy, especially if you are of a mind to be, highly deeply spiritual or highly mental or
Mhm.
philosophical or whatever you want to say, to take all these things and just float up in a way where, to me, the beauty of 12 step work is it ties it back. Okay, right here, you got to do something.
Yeah,
You got an action to take.
yeah.
And when you put them together, otherwise, one of the tendencies of things, any type of spirituality like
Mhm.
that can float away pretty quickly
Yeah,
if it's not tethered to the earth in some way.
absolutely. I think that's a powerful concept that certainly Richard Rohr explains so amazingly.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm so excited to hear that you got a working group of people in recovery who are excited about the Enneagram. That I think you may be on the cutting edge of a small community that, you're breaking the trails out there. And what's it like for you to be, sort of teaching the Enneagram and addiction together? What's that been like for you?
It's well, the exciting part, right? It's good news. It helps. I really want to get it out there. I get excited about it. It's one of the few things that I would get up every morning and do for free. You know,
Yeah.
um, the struggle has been so far. I did two groups uh, that were 9 months long, using material 6, 7 years ago. Put some things together, uh, and I did two separate groups. Thank goodness, I kept them on the same track.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I'd have gone crazy because I was managing two different groups of people and
Hmm.
facilitating the Enneagram integration of the 12 steps over 9 months.
Yeah.
And I'm like, boy, I'll never do that again. So, and then COVID hit. And so that became harder to do group. So the last couple, 3 or 4 years, you helped us in 23. by appearing by Zoom. We were trying to kick it off. I did another workshop last year. It has been difficult to get a critical mass of people uh, to want to do this. They
Yeah.
say they want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you offer the format,
Mm-hmm.
it just hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
So I find myself more often than not, I'm doing a person at a time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I wish part of me, I think, Michael, part of my design is I'm a coach trainer at heart. And I really want to hand
Mm.
this off. I'll be 71 this year. I
Yeah.
really want to kind of start figuring out how to hand this off
Yeah.
in a way to the next generation
Yeah.
because I do think it's important. I think it's super important.
Yeah.
And so getting folks to embrace it inside. It's okay. There are individuals embrace it in the recovery community, but getting groups together has been really hard. Getting
Yes.
traction so that if I go and teach at this particular place, then okay, we want you to come back or we want to do this.
Yeah.
It, it's been difficult.
Well, you're not alone, and I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah,
And but as we're talking, some ideas are coming. But that's where, coming to Alabama and having so many people show up who are interested in the Enneagram, and then there was people in recovery, which is such a delight.
right.
But
I'm
so
I've just always been real big on if you're going to do an event, it needs to have a traction to piggyback off of to go forward. Now, of course, not everybody's going to take advantage of it. Maybe they can't, right?
yeah,
But finding the right kind of way to offer it
yeah,
and here in this area, and
yeah,
then get people to do it where I could say, okay, now you take over, right? You
yeah,
do the next one, whatever.
yeah,
That hadn't happened yet.
yeah. Well, it's definitely a work in progress, and I feel that way for myself too. So, well, look, in terms of your life in the skin of a Enneagram 7, what do you notice about your fast-moving attention in terms of multitasking? Like some people multitask and they're doing two things at once, and sevens like tend to be doing five things at once. But do you notice that you end up getting scattered? There's so many good ideas. There's hard to choose
Mhm.
one, and then you try to do a couple, and then you move to another, and then it's like, oh my God, which one do I choose? Is that been your experience?
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Um, I was fortunate enough that for part of my life, I had a small business. I was in the mortgage business, and that's both a sales job, but also you need some finely tuned financial skills if you're going to do it right in terms of helping a client.
Yeah.
And so it forced me to focus. It's almost like I joke around all the time that all right, I'll do focused self-pres type stuff if there's either a threat of a lot of money, a punishment, or a lot of payment. So without either
Yeah.
one, I just ain't gonna do it. So I'm just honest. I just ain't gonna do it.
Yeah.
So learning to yes, that has been my experience of myself in the business world. I needed to make money. I needed to have a reputation. I needed to get repeat business. So I was able to focus, right?
Yeah.
But still, there was this sense of always wanting to be somewhere else, always having three ideas going, always three books open, always four ideas, and then um, having to develop over time and integrate kind of that focus of a five, that part of the 5 point, and
Yeah.
everybody get
Yeah.
into that, or move into the high side of one.
Mm.
I still don't. I still bothers me when teachers are just talking about disintegrating into one space. It's so incomplete.
Yeah, it is incomplete.
There's a big anchor in there of lost energy for me
Yeah.
with that solidness and that
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
But so it still happens.
Hmm.
I still find that I'm working on one thing, and the next thing I know, I've looked up four other things about a song lyric and something, so and so, and then
And
I'm
then
like,
it goes.
how did I get over there? But I'm sure I'm going to need that one day, right? So let's collect that, hold on to that somewhere, because we're gonna need that. So slowly but surely, again, the 12-step work helped, sponsoring helped because I had to get out of myself and focus on somebody else.
Yeah,
And that helped slow the energy down. Artificial, if you want to call it that, but it was a great way
yeah,
to help me learn how to discipline or be focused and go
yeah,
down. And I'm slowly learning. Okay, all the ideas are not you're not gonna disappear. You're gonna become boring, and and you're not gonna. But it's still a challenge to
yeah.
put it together sometime.
Well, it's interesting, I've noticed with the seven, at least one particular seven, a good friend, as he's speaking to me, it's almost like there are five ideas coming into his thought stream as he's
Mhm.
speaking.
Yep.
And when he's really clear, he can pull them out and become the most magical storyteller that brings all these different parts in that you wouldn't expect, kind of like Robin Williams, how when he was at his best was just
Yeah.
picking. And so
Yeah.
there is a certain truth in that. Maybe I will use this one time, sometime, even though it seems to be obscure research I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just noticed he brings it in stuff that I mean, I've noticed that sevens have quite a hold on good memory too. A lot like the fives. It seems like they've
Yeah.
got a library in there like the fives, except it's a more fun library.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, the gluttony comes into play, and
Yeah,
but sometimes when you do grow up, then you can pull back and use that stuff well
yeah,
and all that. But you're right, as you and I are talking, my tendency is to okay, let's see what he just said. I could teach that. And I'm already in the future, right? Oh
yeah,
yeah, I need to remember because I'm gonna like next week I'll be in California next week. I'm gonna do a small presentation
yeah.
while I'm out there on the Enneagram and conflict.
Uh-huh.
Kind of going through the lens of instincts and that type of thing. Just a
Uh-huh.
little bitty thing,
Hmm.
just because they want me to, and I'm in California. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Of course, all the people I'm with are scared because they think I'm going to get them into Canada and into Mexico before the trip is over because I've got so many ideas about where we're going to go. But my mind definitely is just like you said with your friend. I'm taking these things and instead of staying fully present, I'm already into the future.
Yeah, creating
How
something.
can I put that with something? Oh yeah, I can put that with that, and
Yeah,
then I can do that.
yeah, yeah, and it
Teach
just sort of
that.
unfolds in this.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's certainly the visionary capacity of the type seven. So when you think of, the Jedi gifts of being a seven, what for you are the gifts that you appreciate about your sevenness?
I love the flexibility.
Mm,
Uh, Again, anything overused, strength becomes weakness, right? So, but I love my flexibility of mind. I love my flexibility of thinking,
mm,
problem solving, quick to see where others don't see something, and encourage them that we can do it and that type of thing. That's love. I love that part. Um,
awesome.
Love the fact that I do have retained so many arcane things that in the moment might actually help somebody.
Yeah,
Sometimes not just be funny, yeah, or a joke or clever, but sometimes those things can be put into a format that will help. I love the fact that I can just go across worlds really easily. I can move from one world to another quite seamlessly. It
yes,
doesn't shock me, and
yeah,
people think I fit,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so it's easier for me than some people for people to be okay with me, to trust me, to get along with me.
mm,
Um, and it's not a show, it's not a game,
yeah,
it's not a skill I sat down and tried to develop, but
yeah,
I find myself nuancing
mm,
quite easily across places, and that's often helped people that needed recovery to be okay, to somehow this guy's okay.
yeah,
I sense that he knows me. I can trust him, or oh my
mm,
gosh, he gets it, or however you want. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, the thing what was occurring to me as you were speaking is one trait I often see in sevens is that they're hope bringers, that
yeah,
are drawn towards hopeful opportunities for people, letting people know that if they try this, things could get better. If they try this, things could get better. And
Yeah.
and being a messenger of good news on a certain
Yeah.
level seems to really fit with the seven that I've experienced. Does that
Yeah.
resonate for you?
Absolutely. I've just come to understand, like I was trying to explain to this beloved two that's starting recovery. Okay, you can't help it. You were wired that way. So rely on it. Just relax into it and rely on it. That yeah, you got it wrong a lot of times with your over talking and your cleverness and your this, but you know what? You were trying things on and now, and so
Yeah,
I love the fact that uh, I I naturally want to come toward situations and
yeah,
help people solve
yeah,
them. Not exactly like a two would. It's a
yeah.
different type
Different
of thing,
flavor.
healthy or
Yeah,
unhealthy. But it's just this energy that says, "Hey, I think I can help here. I think I can point some things out. I think I
yeah.
can connect some dots, and
Mm,
I think we can do it together. And I've got this energy. I did it. You can do it.
that's
And here's how
awesome.
we're going to do it. You know."
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, but I
yeah.
think in addition to that, uh, having learned how to do stay with people in the dark stuff and the pain and the emotions
Okay.
has been part of healing my own journey.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm sure I've shared this with you before, but when I go back and look at my written step work stuff from 20 years ago, before I knew the Enneagram,
Mm.
right? So there's a little firewall.
Yeah.
I can't, bias myself. But if you were to read much of that step work, you might conclude that I was a type four
Mm.
because there's a lot of envy
Hmm.
in there, but it was just so muted.
Mm.
But that was it, the victim envious stuff, the melancholy,
Yeah.
I'm never going to fit.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
never going to know what I'm supposed to do
Hmm.
and do it. And
Hmm.
so for me in the heart space, the one I identify the most with is four.
Yeah.
It's not two or three, it's four
Yeah.
by a long shot.
Hmm.
And so I think even learning that
Yeah.
in my recovery with Enneagram has really helped a lot,
Yeah.
both
Awesome.
in the fact that I don't have to hurry people through I mean, I still would like to do it if I could, right?
Hmm.
We had a really touching thing here a week or two ago where a group was talking about some reminiscing, and one of the people in the group is a type 8 who's pretty crusty, pretty hard, but would do anything for, and they were actually late in their life sacrificially serving someone in the family that had hurt them pretty badly.
Mm.
And and they were taking care of this person in a way that almost nobody could. And somebody in the group walked straight up to them and just said that out to them. This is what you're doing. This is incredible. This is beautiful. This is encouraging. And I mean, I could tell I and a couple of other folks
Mm.
were trying to come up with the next clever thing to say to let the air out of that
Mm.
because there was so much emotion tied into that.
Mm.
And I've learned, nope, you don't need the quip. You
Yeah.
don't need the joke to lighten that up. This is what really needs to happen in the moment.
Mm.
They need it and you need it too.
Yeah.
And they may sound like some small thing to people like, oh, what's that big deal? But for me, to be able to pull back from that and not have to hurry them through that
That's a big
is a
deal.
big deal for them and for me.
Yeah.
And it hit home with that person, with that A.
Mm.
That
Mm.
person, by saying the truth about how sacrificial they did,
Hmm.
my guess is it's been a long time since that person
That's heard
has
that.
ever heard anybody say,
Mm.
"Boy, that what a heartfelt thing you did
Mm.
there. What a sacrificial thing you
Mm.
did for them," instead of blaming them for their anger or their outburst or their whatever.
Mm.
And so it was a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Well, that's what I really love about Richard Rohr's work is this whole conversation around just abiding with whatever is coming up and not pushing through it or trying to get rid of it or stuffing it down.
Yeah.
And in particular, grief, both in the MROP and the EROP, there was day of grief work where we really, worked at what is our core wound and how, because core wounds don't tend to disappear. They're still there knocking on our door, right? So there's always more you can do there. But so I think it's a powerful thing for our culture to learn that it's okay
Yeah.
to slow down and just abide with people who are suffering. So,
I
so
think
go ahead. So it looks like you got stuck. Are you
we
back?
we froze. We froze, didn't
Well, there we are. So I'm
we? Yeah.
wondering, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just saying, I think that's one reason Rohr wrote The Tears of Things
Yeah, I'm going to
was,
read
yes,
that.
individually, but as a collective.
Yeah.
How do we touch the tears of things? They have tears, they deserve tears, the
Mm,
grief, the sadness in it, because the world's not perfect. But then how do we take
hmm.
that lament and then let it move us towards action,
Yeah.
conscious action?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Well, so as a seasoned type 7, uh, and we
You
can
try not to say it. You try not to say old.
uh, for anything you'd say to younger sevens that you wish you had learned earlier on? Is there anything come to mind for you?
Oh gosh, so many things, from the practical to the divine, I guess. But um, one really is that, no, you've got a huge heart. You have a huge heart.
Yeah.
The world's going to benefit from it if it hasn't
Mm,
already.
yeah.
You probably just got some deep work to do to touch it.
Yeah.
And there's probably a lot of grief and sadness wrapped around that you don't want to.
Yeah.
Uh, and you don't have to keep running. You don't have to run as long as I did. You don't have to, you can stop talking for a while and find a place to slow down, and then you'll have the place to talk all you need to
Yeah.
in the right setting. Um, and again, I would just remind them, if you're typing as a 7 and acting as a 7, the good news is it's a trail back to some beautiful giftings that the world needs. Yeah.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to say that you haven't said yet?
Oh, there
That's a
you go.
loaded
See,
question.
you weren't supposed to. I got to get the T-shirt, right? Well, I guess just thanks for inviting me on. Thanks for being a part of the healing journey, for
Yeah.
me and my
Yeah.
wife. If you remember, I was so impressed with the intensives you did here that I got her to go to Maine,
Oh.
and she still thinks that she's a self-pres 1,
Uh-huh.
and so her standards pretty high when it comes to effective,
I'll bet.
efficient
Yeah.
teaching, and she still holds you up there with probably higher than any Enneagram teacher she's been
Oh.
around. Yeah,
Oh, that's
she
great.
was, she was, she could tell in 5 minutes if she's going to hang around.
Oh, yeah. Takes
If
a
if
quick,
if,
quick
if
reading.
somebody doesn't show her
Yeah.
the little thing, and we're going,
Hmm.
here's where we're going, and if she doesn't think they can get her, she may stay, but she ain't in there.
Yeah.
And you did that with her. Your mix of depth,
Mm.
but also the discipline and the focus,
Yeah.
but also then allowing for play and leeway as
Yeah.
in people's work was
Yeah.
clear to her.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
so
So
that was a
happy.
big deal. Yeah,
Wow. So joyful to hear that. So,
yeah,
well, look,
yeah,
I'm gonna stop the recording here, but again, just want to thank you. Just much
yeah,
love to you, many
yeah,
blessings,
yeah.
and then let me just